Hello, I'm Sarah, and welcome to this HireWire Explainer. We're here to make sense of the September 2025 labor market. Now, after last month's really confusing numbers, we're going to lean on the latest data we have, and especially on the sharp insights of industry legend Bob Marshall to clarify what all these conflicting signals mean for us.
So, to figure out where the market is actually going, we first have to talk about the recent events that have created so much uncertainty. It is a very confusing landscape right now, filled with conflicting information, and we need to acknowledge that from the start. The first major shock to the system was this number right here, a huge downward revision of 911,000 jobs for the year through March 2025. This is the largest adjustment of its kind since at least the year 2000. Bob Marshall pointed to this immediately as a clear, undeniable sign of a cooling market, one that was actually running much hotter than the official data had suggested. And to make things even more challenging, the main benchmark we all rely on, the official Bureau of Labor Statistics, or BLS, jobs report for September, well, it's been delayed. This basically forces us to piece together the current state of employment from all these other available indicators, which, as you'll see, don't always tell the same story.
Okay, so let's look at the data we do have for September and see how it builds such a conflicting narrative. This is where Bob Marshall's analysis is so helpful, because he has a real talent for seeing the patterns inside of all the noise.
Now, what's really interesting here is the direct contradiction you see on this slide. On one side, the ADP report shows that private companies actually lost 32,000 jobs in September. But then, the most recent JOLTS report from August shows that 7.2 million jobs were still open. So how can a market be losing jobs while millions of positions are still waiting to be filled? And other indicators just add more layers to this puzzle. For example, economists who were polled by the London Stock Exchange Group, or LSEG, were expecting a small gain of 50,000 jobs. At the same time, real-time trackers from the Chicago Fed are projecting a slight rise in unemployment, and they show the hiring rate is decreasing a little while the layoff rate is increasing. Each piece of data points toward a general softening, but without the official BLS numbers, the picture just remains incomplete. To really understand these numbers, we have to look beyond them and examine what employers are thinking. And when we do that, a much clearer trend starts to emerge. It's a trend of widespread caution and increasing selectivity. And this chart illustrates that cautious mood perfectly. According to Manpower Group's survey for the fourth quarter, the largest group of employers, 45% of them, plan to simply maintain their current staff levels. Only 38% are actually planning to add new staff. So this is not a market of aggressive expansion, it's a market focused on stability. This quote from the report just captures the current climate perfectly. Employers are not just reducing hiring, they are becoming far more strategic. The focus has really shifted away from broad workforce growth and toward finding very specific, adaptable skills that build a resilient organization.
Small businesses, which are such a critical part of the economy, are living this split reality. The National Federation of Independent Business, or NFIB, reports that nearly a third of their owners have job openings they cannot fill, and most of those are for skilled workers. They describe the situation as a jobless recovery, which is this simultaneous struggle to find qualified talent and a hesitation to expand.
This is where some of Bob Marshall's great insights come from, his focus on these long-term trends. Beyond the monthly numbers, there are two powerful forces fundamentally reshaping the very nature of work right now, and they explain much of the contradiction we are all seeing. The first force is generative AI, and this is not some distant concept anymore. A report from the Indeed Hiring Lab shows that a combined 80% of all U.S. jobs already have moderate or high exposure to AI. It is actively reshaping the tasks and skills that are required across our entire economy. And the really critical point is that AI is changing how we work. For the average job in the U.S., 44% of skills are in what's called a hybrid transformation. That's where AI handles the routine work and humans provide the oversight. Another 12% will see an assisted transformation, so the focus is on augmenting human roles, not simply replacing them. And this adoption is happening very quickly. A recent report from Anthropic found that 77% of their Claude AI usage by businesses already involves task automation. Companies are actively integrating these tools to delegate work and increase their efficiency. The second major force, and one that Bob Marshall frequently highlights, is demographics. The global talent pool is shrinking.
By the year 2040, the vast majority of countries will see a slowdown in their working age population growth, and many will face an outright decline. This creates a long-term structural pressure on the talent supply.
Now, when you combine a shrinking workforce with this fact that 1/3 of the required skills for an average job have changed in just 3 years, you get something called a skills shortfall. For recruiters, this means the search for talent is now a hunt for very specific, evolving capabilities. And that makes talent development and reskilling more critical than ever. So let's synthesize all these pieces of evidence. When we bring together the short-term data and these huge long-term forces, a new labor reality really comes into focus. And this is where we benefit from Bob Marshall's holistic view of the market.
So this is not a simple good or bad labor market. It's a market in a very complex transition. Hiring is now defined by caution and extreme selectivity. At the very same time, the AI-driven transformation of work is accelerating, while a demographic squeeze is creating permanent talent shortages. This finally explains the contradictions. Companies are cautious about adding more people, but they are desperate to find people with the right modern skills. And this all brings us to the final critical question for all of us. We are moving from a world that had a surplus of labor to one with a scarcity of talent, and from stable job roles to dynamic skill requirements. So the question we leave you with is this. In a market being fundamentally reshaped by these two powerful forces, what are the skills that will truly define the workforce of tomorrow?